having a conversation with Zaki Baruti, with your host Zaki Baruti, and like always, I want to give a shout out to my biological family. What's happening to the Universal African Peoples Organization family, what's going on, and to New Life Evangelistic Center family headed by Reverend Rice. Keep up the great work, and a shout out to our amazing cameraman Bob. On that note, we'll have a great show because in the studio with me is a very intelligent, lovely looking young lady who is the 7th Ward Alderperson for the city of St. Louis, and I'm speaking none other than Alisha Sonnier. Welcome to Conversation with Zaki Baruti.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. You know, when I begin my programs, I always like for our audience, those thousands of people who are listening, to know a little background of the person who I'm interviewing. So wherever background information that you like folks to know about you, could you please share?
Yeah, for sure. I would say probably the most important thing to know is that I'm born and raised in St. Louis. I obviously serve as the Alderwoman, but I actually have my undergraduate degree as a Bachelor's of Science in Psychology, and I worked in mental health prior to running for Alderperson. I served on the Board of Education before serving here, but I really got my start after the murder of Michael Brown. I got very involved in activism and organizing. It was during my first year at St. Louis University, and really just shifted and transformed the way that I looked at the world, and I started really thinking about who has the power to make decisions and who's in those seats versus who's not. And I think ultimately arrived at the conclusion that I'd like to be someone that is a part of the decision making, and was very frustrated with the fact that I felt like folks like myself with my values and priorities and principles were not in that seat. And so I think if you start there at 18, then by the time you're 25, you decide you want to run for the Board of Education. You do, and you lose by 26 votes, but you get almost 15,000. And I was honored to be appointed by Mayor Jones at the time to the school board. And then I served there for 2 years, but because it was an appointed seat, it was just a 2-year term. And instead of rerunning for Board of Education, I decided to run for Board of the Aldermen in the 7th Ward, which at that time, we were going from 28 wards to 14 wards. And so there was completely different boundaries, completely different constituencies, the structure of the board, the structure of the committees, all of those things were changing. And I was able to win that election and then re-won re-election just a year ago. But ultimately, I'm just a woman who believes that you're either, at the decision-making table or you're on the menu.
I know that's right.
Yeah.
And we don't need to be just on the menu. I know that's right. I salute that. Now, you made mention, so you graduated from St. Louis University?
From UMSL.
From UMSL.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay then. And were you involved on college level as it relates to the Black student movement or that kind of thing?
Very much so. One of the first things that I did, it was called Occupy SLU, and it was during Ferguson. We had a bunch of folks. Ferguson October was a time where people from all over the country and even all over the world had come here to Ferguson. And at that time, I was going out regularly at night and kind of participating in activities, but then was also coming back to a campus that definitely said higher good, greater truth, but there was a big disconnect as far as the conversations that were happening on campus. And there was even an email sent out on the day that St. Louis University said, Cornell West, come to St. Louis, go to the Chaffetz Arena. And so Cornell West, the NAACP, were having this big event at the Chaffetz Arena. But it was an interesting disconnect because many of those who were kind of out protesting and doing a lot of the activism and actions were not necessarily, did not know a Cornell West and were not necessarily a part of NAACPs. And for myself as a student, my university decided on the day of that event to send an email and say, we're going to keep you safe. Like, don't worry about all these activities and these things that are happening. We're going to protect you. And I was like actually highly insulted because I'm like, you're missing the point of this conversation. As a Black woman, I don't know that even this ivory tower can offer up the type of protection that you're saying you can give me. If we're having a conversation about, police brutality or the abuse of power or municipalities that are set up kind of in alignment with the oppression of people, then you're saying we're going to keep you safe is kind of not even acknowledge someone like me's existence, who is both a student but also is a part of a group that there are some real issues happening. And so we ended up taking that march from Chaffetz Arena. There was about 2,000 people, and taking that to St. Louis University. And that led to us being there for 6 days and signing something called the Clock Tower Accords, which is a 12-point sort of multi-million-dollar initiative with things that were supposed to both enrich kind of campus life for African Americans, but also to make the university something that was more reflective of the demographic of the city, which was, 50% Black.
I know that's right. You were making mention, you just took me back into the time channel of Ferguson, you know, which I was the organization I represent was very involved in many of the protests and what have you. And at that time, and I used to actually live in Ferguson, actually in the complex where Mike Brown was, Jr. was murdered, but it was called the Village Apartments. And at that time, in the early 70s, I organized attendance to protest because we were having poor housing conditions, you know, dealing with roaches and poor garbage collection, a lot of boulders in the streets. And we were able to get them all done, okay? But, I mean, you know, corrections. But when it came time for my lease to come up for a renewal, I was out.
You went out? Yeah.
I was out. They said, you cannot be a resident here. But having moved away, and, you know, Ferguson was changing in terms of the demographics from predominantly white, you know, to more black people. But at the time of his murder, in my mind, I was thinking Ferguson around 50% black, you know. But I was shocked to find out it was 60% black, yet you had a police force that was at least 53 members, only 3 black.
Right.
So when you speak in terms of the need to be involved as well as politically, it rings a bell because our organization, I want you to speak to this too, we push a concept that's called proportionate political representation, which simply means that wherever percentage we are as a people, on the national, state, and local levels of government, then we should have that percentage of political power. Your thoughts on that? But you had to save those thoughts for the other side of the break.
May God bless all you faithful listeners and viewers of the Zaki Baruti Show as you reach out and help those in need. Right now at the New Life Evangelistic Center, not only do we have to feed hundreds of people every day that are sleeping outside, but many that are coming to our facilities, for example, in Springfield, Missouri, and those that are getting help through our safe houses and outreach centers at the New Life Evangelistic Center throughout the greater St. Louis area. They all have to be fed, and they don't get their food stamps, they don't get direct assistance. We have to just continue to reach deeper and cry out further unto the Almighty God to work through caring people like you. So I'm asking you to please let God's light and love flow through you at this time. Bring your food to 2428 Woodson Road in Overland, Missouri, 806 North Jefferson, and Springfield. Please send your tax-deductible gifts now to New Life Evangelistic Center, P.O. Box 473, St. Louis, Missouri, that's 63166. And when you send your gift in, ask for a free copy of the new ZOA free paper. All kinds of testimonials are in here, all kinds of inspirational articles. Again, please pray for New Life Evangelistic Center. Please send your much-needed tax-deductible gifts so we can feed the hungry and help the homeless to New Life Evangelistic Center, P.O. Box 473, St. Louis, Missouri, that's 63166. And when you do, ask for a copy of the New Life ZOA free paper, Celebration of Hope edition. Your faith will be stirred, and you will have an opportunity to help so many right now that don't know what to do or where to go. We're encouraging them to trust in the Lord with all their heart. He'll never leave nor forsake them. And we're also directly trying to help them in their time of need. Please continue to pray for New Life Evangelistic Center. Please continue to share at this time and know that your gift goes a long way as you pray, care, and share with the center that's on the front lines.
When you partner with New Life Evangelistic Center, you impact so many people. The economy in this country is really hurting so many all over. And we're seeing the number of people who are experiencing homelessness rise. You can make a difference today by giving your gift online at newlifeevangelisticcenter.org. newlifeevangelisticcenter.org. Make a real big change in the lives of so many.
Welcome back to Conversation with Zaki Baruti. In studio with me, the 7th Ward Alderperson, Alisha Sonnier. And on the other side of the break, I was asking you to comment on the concept of proportionate political representation and how does that tie in with your being elected as the 7th Ward, which is kind of like in the south side of St. Louis City, right? Which is normally predominantly white. Okay, go ahead.
You saying Sonnier in the St. Louis way is Sonnier.
Sonnier, forgive me.
You said it in the St. Louis way, that's okay. You know, I do believe in folks being represented. and that it should be proportional. But I think that we absolutely have to tie that to conversations around political education, because I, absolutely would prefer to, as a Black woman, I want to see Black representation, but I want to see Black representation that has an analysis of oppression, that has an analysis and an understanding of what they're operating in. If you give me two candidates and one candidate is Black and one candidate is white, but the Black candidate is, very pro-criminalization, believes that poverty in itself is a crime, won't talk about bettering economic conditions for people or transforming systems, and may instead say, Black folks, a lot of this is our fault, we just need to help ourselves, and the government doesn't really owe you anything, even if they created the conditions, versus a candidate that might be more willing to really talk about how, especially in a position of power, they can help set up systems to support people, but that candidate is white. I'm going to take the white vote. And so I definitely think that we've got to have representation, but I think in our community internally, we have to pair that with political education. I think that's something that the Black Panther Party talked about. You don't want to have Black faces that are still doing the work that folks who were other races have done historically to hurt us. It doesn't matter if you're Black and you're doing the same things that necessarily a white person has been to see decades before you did, then there's no difference. You have a Black face, but there's no difference in the community. And so, I support representation, but I also think that that has to come with an actual political analysis and an understanding of how systems work and someone's ability to be effective and hopefully moving and transforming that system into one that can really work for the people.
Well, you know what, in your comments you made mention, a little bit about the Black Panther Party?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I used to work with
African American Studies was definitely the other thing that I studied a lot in college. Absolutely.
That's great. Going back to Ferguson, though, I failed to mention, too, for our audience, the population was 68% Black, yet on the city council of 6 members, and of course, Eddie White mayor, total of 7 policymakers and only 1. And we were 68% of the population. Of course, that has changed since that time, and the call for more of our people become more politically educated and seeking political office. So with that said, in terms of your candidacy, and you did say you served a couple years on the St. Louis
Board of Education,
which is very, very important, because as you were mentioning about you getting some of your history being taught at college. What about in high school? What high school did you go to?
So Cardinal Ritter and University City were my 2 high schools. My last year of high school, I basically only went to high school half a day and started working and taking college classes because I was done. So that year, my mom was like, look, we either going to do the private school tuition or we going to do the college tuition.
Wait a minute, you said Cardinal Ritter?
Cardinal Ritter, in the city.
All right, in the city. Go ahead then.
But it's a Black private Catholic school. And I think it was the best thing that ever happened to me. I think going there really helped set me up for the rest of my life. What's really interesting about Cardinal Ritter is you're required to take a class called leadership, and leadership is essentially an African American studies class, and you're required to take leadership both in your freshman year and in your junior year. And so at 15 and 17, right before you start applying to colleges, you're basically learning the truth about your history and your people. And I honestly think that I would charge that class as starting to first open my eyes up, like before Michael Brown, but when you sit in a class and you learn, like, not just the blanket, slavery, civil rights, where we are now, but you really learn about, a Mary McLeod Bethune, a Claudette Colvin, a Fannie Lou Hamer, when you even breaking down a Malcolm X and a Martin Luther King and the way that their theories and perspectives changed throughout their lives, a Booker T. Washington, when you really get that, I think it's kind of impossible to not start to think more. Like, it's the first time I remember thinking about what it means to be Black in America. I don't know that I ever really thought about that inherently. You're just 15. But when you take those classes and you learn about that history, I think you start to feel a sense of awareness and responsibility. Even now, I would say as an older person, I think a lot of times, one of the things I say now is I really wish that we had more president at times. Some of the things we're dealing with in the city, I didn't know. Who knew that we might have an MWBE program paused? Who knew that you might be discussing data centers? Who knew that you would be having a $250 million from Ramsell? Some of these things you can't predict are going to come, or a state control of a police department again. But I think if you know your history, gives you a little bit more endurance and resiliency, because, I mean, quite literally, if we survived slavery, then I would reckon that we probably could survive anything, but you also are aware, like, anything that your folks have gotten, nobody gave to you, that it took people who would learn and study and build community and build relationship and challenge, you know, systems in order to get those gains. And I think that is, like, really key for most young people, to see people that represent people who they've come from and let them know, like, this is the real bar and standard for you.
So with that said, I'm a former educator, also outspoken in the classroom. Taken out of the class for my outspokenness in terms I did a public letter cracking on a person of color that to me was anti our people and our children, okay? Your thoughts about the educational system as it relates to us, our young people being taught about their true history?
I mean, it's obviously under attack right now. Right now, I know we are in a political climate where you can't even write the word Black or African American in a grant in many cases, and so I think there's a direct attack to make sure that we're just not honest about our history in several ways, and certain people don't know the truths of what we've done, because if people are aware of what we've done, they might actually have an intention to do better, and so I think it's a shame, but I think it's active, but I think it's always been active. I don't think most Black history programs come from students protesting or come from, you rarely going to find an institution that just decided that we're going to teach you about your history and we're going to put staff here and put that in. Nobody just woke up one day. It usually came from a group of people saying, hey, this is important, we want you to fund it, that we're a part of those institutions or seeking to be a part. So, I think it's a shame, but I also think that the best thing to do as an individual would be to never fully rely on just like your public school district or any school district to be educating your child. The best thing to do would be to assume that responsibility as an individual. But then I would say, as an elected leader, in any way that we can, we should be talking about our children. The city recently had a curfew. And I think it's important that leaders like myself say, if we're going to talk about curfews and rules and restrictions for children, we need to also be having conversations about options and resources for them.
Absolutely, absolutely. So my next question will come after this break.
Behind me is the New Life Evangelistic Center administrative offices in Overland, Missouri. And this is where we shoot our shows for our worship shows and the Here's Help Network. And it's also where Zaki Baruti and Bernie Hayes shoot their shows. You can find all of these shows at the New Life Evangelistic Center app, the NLEC TV app. You can also access them on your tablet or on your computer. And this is how you can stay up to date with all the things that New Life Evangelistic Center is doing. There are so many different programs that we've got going on, and God is doing many exciting things through partners like you. So if you want to support the work that New Life is doing, then please access and give through the app. You can go online at nlecstl.org or give us a call at 314-421-3020. Again, 314-421-3020. But this is the best way to get plugged into the amazing work that New Life is doing through people like you. And so there is something for you to get involved in today. And we are so thankful for our partners. Only through the grace of God and your gift are we able to bless others today.
Welcome back to Conversation with Zaki Baruti. In the studio with me is the 7th Ward Alderperson, who always be messing up her name, Alisha Sonnier.
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 I think Sonnier.
Okay. On the other side of the break, we are getting into history and the need for our people to know the history of young people. But for you, let me ask this question. What would be your top book that had an impact on your thinking around, our people, the struggle of our people? The top number.
One book is really hard.
Well, give me a couple of them.
Well, I guess if I was giving people recommendations, I think you absolutely have to read Invisible Man. I think that's...
By Ralph Ellison?
Yep.
Yes.
I think you've got to read that. I just read a book of Malcolm X's speeches. It's a full book of just many of his speeches and thoughts, and I found that so interesting. I also just finished a book, I can't remember the author, but it's basically a chronologically of the Black Panther Party and contextualizing that to each time era That was great. Any Toni Morrison, you can't go wrong with that. Any James Baldwin, you can't go wrong with that.
At the fire next time.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So many, I feel bad just picking one. You know, we have so many writers, you can't go wrong. We just have so many. I'm really a reader. I really love our history, I love our stories. So it is hard to pick one. I think right now I'm definitely doing a lot of reading around Black leaders. Personally, I'm even read Lacey Clay's book. I can't remember the name of it, but he wrote a book that I found extremely helpful. And in that book, he kind of talks about a time when there were no Black aldermen, a time when there were no Black folks on the school board. And he talks about how he worked kind of neighborhood by neighborhood, block by block, to build a consensus and to get us from a point where we could even have a board of education member or even to having a congressional, representative. So I think that's really important. I've read Vervis Jones' books. I think that's important to the city of St. Louis. So I'm such a
former
reader.
city comptroller, just in case the people weren't aware.
Yeah.
Okay, then. Well, let me ask this question. Going back in terms of your experiences in Ferguson, and before you answer, just for our audience, we are going to have a part 2 where we're going to get into some of the real issues of impact in St. Louis. But what was your experiences like on the streets in Ferguson at the time of the uprising?
I would say that they were very both community building and traumatic. Honestly, I would just be honest, it was a traumatic time. It was not a beautiful kumbaya, this feels good. It's very
Now,
traumatic.
were your family really concerned about you being out
Oh,
on the streets?
absolutely. My mother, I'm never going to forget, especially when I did Occupy SLU on campus. Oh, she called and said, now, I can't afford that $50,000 in tuition, so you protesting and occupying that campus, I hope you occupying those books, okay? Because I don't know how none of this going to work. I don't know how this is going to go. I cannot afford, they're on scholarship. We don't got it. So I think she was concerned both in terms of wanting your child to be able to continue to mobilize economically and who you feel like is smart and has gifts and like, is this going to hurt her?
Right.
And at that time, it wasn't at all. Now people talk about Ferguson with a regard and like, oh, it was known at that time. People told me you won't be able to get a job. You won't be able to get into certain programs. It was not presented as if it was going to be this thing that might help you to advance. It was presented as if it was going to hurt you.
Right.
So I think she was concerned about that, and then just concerned about, at the end of the day, I was a student, and she wanted to see me complete my degree.
Yeah, you take me back during the era when I was working with the Panther Party. My mother used to say, boy, sit down and shut up because of the fear, because of the historical things that would happen to people who be outspoken, such as my man went to Medgar Evers, who was pushing for voters' rights, and he was shot in the back, so many different instances,
But what I would say to that is my mom now loves telling everybody that her baby is the Alderwoman. She loves coming to the events. So I think she's very grateful that Alisha at 18 and 19 was someone who did honor her spirit and did what she called and didn't think about fear. And I also think from a historical perspective, that's how these things work. I think young people are not supposed to be, you don't have a mortgage, you don't have children. You're supposed to be able to be the change maker of a world and to push it because you don't have certain concessions that you have to make. You can truly see something is wrong and be like, all the stuff y'all talking about, this is wrong immorally. And I like to say that young people are usually the moral compass, of a country. And I think even in the history of America, a lot of our social movements are started by young people, and then elders make counsel and they advise and they come and try to clean up your mess. I'm very grateful for all the professors who I know were fiercely advocating and saying, let's not suspend her, and I think about those things now, one thinking about it now, of all the adults who covered me and even my mom who didn't love it, but I think also understood, well, if my child has some fire within her, let me not kill it and suppress it all the way.
I know that's right. A shout out to your mom, and we're going to do a quick break.
And now I just wanted to share with you that when you partner with New Life Evangelistic Center, you are truly giving hope to people who are in desperate straits. For 52 years, New Life Evangelistic Center has been helping men and women and children who are experiencing homelessness. And they hold on to hope because of partners like you. So I want to invite you to get more involved, to learn more about how you can plug in your time, your talents, your treasures into the work here at New Life Evangelistic Center. Go to nlecstl.org to learn more, or call 314-421-3020 to learn about how you can help others hold on to hope in their desperate time of need.
I'm here with Caden, and he's hoping that all of you can come out and walk in Queenie Park on May the 23rd for the homeless mamas and their babies. So many homeless people, and that's on May the 23rd. The New Life Evangelistic Center is having a very special walk for the homeless. Will you join us? Will you get sponsors? It's going to be in Queenie Park on May the 23rd, and we need each and every one of you to hear the cries of the children and let God's light and love flow through you. And again, call us at New Life Evangelistic Center, right? You can't walk, but they can walk for you, can't they? Huh? Well, I hope you do that. And that's you call us here, 314-421-3020, and get involved. Or you can go to nlecstl.org. You can come by here and get some forms at 2428 Woodson Road in Overland, Missouri. I thank God for each one of you that are making it possible for us to have safe houses for the homeless women and children. We need you now. Please get involved in that walk on May the 23rd.
Welcome back to Conversation with Zaki Baruti. I'm here in studio with the 7th Ward Alderperson, Alisha Sonnier.
Sonnier.
Sonnier, I cannot get that. Forgive me. All right.
Next time I come back, you'll have it down.
When you were mentioning about the moral compass of that your mother was projecting onto you, your thoughts on the critical issue impacting the world economy, the war in Iran. Your thoughts there. I'm just exploring your thoughts.
I mean, I think it's insane. I think that anybody, and this is not party specific, I'm talking to any citizen of any part of society. If you don't see what's happening now as a clear abuse of power, you know, in terms of just completely bypassing the Constitution, in terms of the executive branch having major overreach and just making decisions and doing what they want, is just very shameful. And I look forward to a Congress, including my congressperson, speaking up and advocating more often and being clear that they don't agree with what's happening. I think that we should not be doing anything that would enable or continue any form of genocide. And I think that here, while residents are squeezing blood from a turnip, while health insurance, because of the big beautiful bill, is tripling things, while even
the
our
big
own,
beautiful bill. I mean,
sorry.
you meant that big ugly bill.
Yes, the big ugly bill, or even Harrisville State University, that in our own state's budget just got incredibly amounts of defunding just happened to the one, black institution that we have here, or even the other state colleges within our Missouri, where you saw they just canceled any person of color, multicultural student organization. They won't be funding it. If you can see all of these things happening and not see that like we are at a critical inflection point at a moral crisis, and I do think fascism is what we're seeing, then I don't think that you're paying attention or you're in denial.
Some people may not have no understanding of the word fascism. Spell it out for them, and what is it?
Fascism, F-A-S-C-I-S-M, essentially describes a government that is one person and that completely imposes their will. And so in this case, the fascist would be the Donald Trump administration. And what that looks like, you can look in several places across the country. The Iran war is a great example, because typically you need Congress to approve of a war, but you have a president who's saying, we don't care what Congress says, we're going to do this. And you see a president going back and forth with his own attorney general who he just fired. That is one example of fascism. Fascism could be the unprecedented bloating of a federal enforcement agency, such as the ICE enforcement agency, while also the unprecedented defloating of other key things such as healthcare, education, and housing. These are the things of fascism. It is one person ruling and kind of bypassing a constitution, typical checks of government, and having their way.
So, as I mentioned to the audience, we want to do part 2. Real quick, top 3 issues that we will be discussing part 2.
RAM settlement funds, tornado recovery, and
take over the police department.
Yes, take over the police department.
Now, if anybody want to get in contact with you, and I appreciate your analysis nationally and internationally, how would they get in contact with you?
I think on the screen flash my phone number, that office number. I have a great secretary who is always there, even when I'm not, places like here, who takes those calls, and we respond to that actively. The email address is the second point, and then I actually have monthly office hours, and so every month, hour and a half in the morning, hour and a half in the evening, they're just open time. So if you shoot me an email and say you want to chat, those office hours can be sent to you, or if you call, they can be given to you. And then also for any residents, a lot of my constituents know I'm at their neighborhood meetings every month as well.
Okay, I want to thank you for sitting down with me with a conversation with Zaki Baruti. And like always, to the audience, make sure you know the issues and vote at each election. Also, join an organization that speaks truth to power and has a history of uplifting humanity. We say join the Universal African Peoples Organization. God bless each and every one of you.